It's now, okay. It's now,
Okay. So go to YouTube Studio. It's tense, isn't it?
you can hear a pin drop.
Exactly.
I can hear Buddy's heart beating.
Yes, he's very concerned.
You're going to witness history. That's right.
History in the making.
That's right. There you go. See? You see George? See?
Okay. So
It says it's live on YouTube, so
it says live on YouTube, and our friend Nigel Baird is here. Hi, Nigel. Good to see you. Very nice. Sorry about last week. It was a big technical fiasco, but we've managed, as we promised, we resolved the bugs that beset us last week. So, how are you, Peter?
Very good. I just had a wonderful steak lunch with Dmitry Babich and Jeffrey Roberts, who's visiting Moscow right now. He's an old hand on Crosstalk, and a really very, very good historian of the Soviet Union and Russia in general. So we had a fantastic time, a lot of shop talk and, talking about Moscow and, this and that, COVID, how's it in Ireland, how's it in the UK, how's it in Russia? So,
right.
Very topical.
So speaking of Russia, I looked today at the front page of the New York Times. It's a dirty business, but someone's got to do it. So I look here, and I look on the website, and I see one story near the top. It says debunking the pro-Trump rights claims about January the 6th. Then I scroll down a little bit, and we have three stories about the Russian election. One, in search of how Putin shapes Russia. The Times says 3,000 miles journey. And then the subhead, many say they are fed up with President Vladimir Putin's rule, but there's fear that, as one man said, quote, if things start to change, there will be blood, unquote. Then we have the next story. The Kremlin has used deceitful tactics to try to stage a big win in parliamentary election this weekend. Here's how. And then another story, an app built by Russian activists to coordinate protest voting vanished from Google and app stores. And then I kind of look through, I go through all these stories, blah, blah, there's something, blah about Merkel. And right at the bottom, right at the bottom, it has, tiny story. Trump era special counsel secures indictment of lawyer. Now, this is the biggest story since the Milley business, for which, again, the Times doesn't say anything. And incidentally, because when we were talking about this in yesterday's podcast, we were only going by news stories. We hadn't yet seen the indictment. The indictment came down after we had finished our broadcast. The indictment is far more damaging than the New York Times story led us to believe. Because the New York Times focused on this minor lawyer, and it apparently there was just simply a confusion about whom he was representing. Was he representing himself? Well, yeah, exactly. So it's all, one of these boring legal procedure cases that no one takes any interest in. This is very damaging, what he says in that indictment, because clearly this was an absolute plot. They've got they got the plot dead to rights, hatched by the Clinton campaign. They used this lawyer. They knew that this was an absolute fraud that they were perpetrating, and he put out this story to the FBI. Which they actually cooked up because they had no evidence whatsoever that there was any kind of communication between Alpha Bank and the Trump organization. So he knowingly misled the FBI, which is so as to the substance, not just about whom he was representing. And yes, he was indeed billing the Clinton campaign while he was doing this. So this was an extraordinary, damaging indictment. And of course, the New York Times story, it wasn't a long story, but it had 4 bylines. So four reporters worked on that short story. The New York Times knew exactly what it was doing. They hired 4 reporters because it's damage control, because the New York Times was right at the heart of Russiagate. And they know this is quite damaging to reveal this. So here, of course, the Times now pushes it right to the bottom, because you have to really scroll down that big page with all those boring stories until you finally get to this little item about this Trump era special counsel. So that's today's New York Times.
Okay, the New York Times. The words "pravda" and "izvestia," right? Okay,
yep.
And you know the joke, right?
Yes, of course.
Pravda is truth, and izvestia is news. And during the Soviet Union, there's no truth in the news, and there's no news in the news.
That's
okay,
right.
And that's the New York Times.
Yep, absolutely. And that's how it plays the game. It's always manipulating the news. It's always a kind of it tells you something. And then it's always cunning in dropping the important point right down at the bottom, always in the penultimate paragraph, because no one ever goes that far. People don't even go beyond the fold. I mean, everyone knows that.
And they don't even mention in the first paragraph, the last paragraph is that this is believed to be the origins of a hoax that was played upon the American people for 5 years.
That's right. That's it. That's exactly it. That's it. Yeah, it was a complete hoax. And that's what this indictment reveals. I mean, of course, we already known all this. So there's nothing new about this. And we knew it was a hoax back in 2016.
For you and I?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was always nonsensical. But you can see how there was this multi-pronged attack. So, you had Mark Elias, who was instrumental in hiring Christopher Steele to write that dossier. And then, of course, once Steele does that dossier, the Clinton campaign starts pushing it onto the media, pushing it onto the FBI. Then you have Sussman, who he hears about the DNC, the hack of the DNC, hires CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike then says, yeah, it was the Russians. Clinton campaign immediately goes to the media and says, "Oh, it was the Russians what did it," and that became quickly a talking point among the the media. Oh, the Russians are hacking the DNC.
And the FBI had no interest in looking at the server.
None.
They trusted.
Amazing. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of them doing that? They outsource something of this significant. They outsourced it.
They outsourced. Yeah. I mean, imagine if there's a bank robbery. And then, there is, the bank has its own closed circuit camera. And then, the police wants to investigate. And the bank says, no, we're not going to show you what's actually in the footage. We'll just describe you what actually you can see on it. Okay. And the police say, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Just give us a description of what's on the footage.
And then when there's behind closed doors testimony, so CrowdStrike, so what is your evidence? Well, could be, might have been, we thought so, we don't know.
Yeah.
And that was held behind closed doors for 6 months.
That's right.
And there were Republicans on that committee that knew it.
They knew it, and they kept them out.
Did they come out and sing? Yeah. No, but Adam Schiff, though, he was in between sessions, between testimonies. Exactly. He was leaking.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Republicans What were they doing? Picking their nose?
That's right, picking their nose, exactly, picking their feet. I mean, yeah, and remember, not only was he was leaking lies, because all of those various stories, that for instance, that Trump's son knew ahead of time about the WikiLeaks exposure. I mean, remember that? Boom! That was it was a sensation. They had it dead to rights. That's it. Well, got the date wrong.
At least that reporter
they doesn't get it right. They don't get dates wrong.
But that was NBC, right? At least he got fired for it. Okay.
No, that was a different. Was that the same one? Yeah, because there was another one. I'm not sure. He didn't get fired for that one. I think Alex Ross, of ABC. I think what he got fired for is the story that said that Trump instructed General Flynn to make nice with the Russians before the election. And then it turned out that, actually, when I said before the election, I meant after the election that this happened. So I think that was Alex Ross. Do
you ever confuse those two words, George, before and after?
Yeah, they sound the same. I mean, yeah, I often mistake them. Yeah, they just sound, yeah. But that was the extraordinary thing, that all these mistakes, they're always on one side, and the media run with them. Where were they getting the story from? They were getting it from Schiff or someone on Schiff staff. You don't make mistakes like that. These people, they're not stupid people. You don't just sort of, or when I said the 4th, I actually meant the 14th. No, people just don't make it.
Well, you brought up the election here. Yes, there's an election in Russia today. There's a 3-day process of voting, so people, working, and they have the weekend, and it's real quiet. I mean, I don't see any thunderstorms coming or anything, and it is hopefully, knock on wood. George and I will be talking to Dmitry Babich tomorrow. I've already talked to him. He said he's available, but I haven't nailed down the time yet, so I need to get back to you on that, and to kind of give a broad view of what this election means beyond what the what is it? What do we call it now? We call it Pravda on the Potomac. The Washington Post asked us.
Yes. So Herman Montoya, our old friend, he asks, why don't the mainstream media ask CrowdStrike, a public traded company, about the servers? Why don't shareholders paying the price? I think it's an excellent question. I mean, I'm amazed that CrowdStrike got away with it, the FBI. And they got away with it with the media. I mean, we really didn't know, because the media didn't report it, that they actually never provided the actual servers to the FBI. And the final report, the report that they wrote, they never provided that report to the FBI either. They just gave edited highlights. And then when the Flynn defense asked for the actual report, they said, well, no one knows where it is. It's kind of lost in the midst of time.
How do you lose things like that? Jeez.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. No, it's a good question. And unfortunately, fortunately for our viewers, George and I pay close attention to this. We've watched this thing from day one and commented on it from day one.
Right.
But I mean, when you look at the news flow, CrowdStrike was involved with revealing. So, what was it? Well, it was it was about a hack or something like that. And then that's it. That's basically what people remember. And they must be the good guys, because the FBI gave them a pass or something. So, the fact of the matter is that we look at it in a very forensic way. But because there's no follow-up in the media, and there's how many cable program outside of Sean Hannity, which did an excellent job on Russiagate, I give him kudos for that. But like on MSNBC and CNN, no one ever asked the question, well, why didn't you just give it over to the FBI? That's like a verboten question. You can't say that.
Okay? Right. That's exactly right. And that's that's exactly how they play it. Now, Hannity did a pretty good job. My problem with Hannity was always that that he kind of said that somehow the Russians are involved in this. So he made this into this issue that somehow, the Russians are doing this. But Russia had nothing to do with Russiagate. And so he's saying, well, because he talked about steel, well, the dirty Russian dossier. How many times does he repeat that? The dirty Russian dossier, as if somehow the Russians, and that woman, Fiona Hill, she put out also that story when she was testifying during the first impeachment, which was that the Russians were using steel. The Russians had heard that steel was compiling this dossier, and they were feeding him disinformation. Russia had nothing whatever to do with any of this.
For those who just joined us here, we were discussing the indictment that came down yesterday, the last news cycle, about the origins of the Russiagate hoax, and as George, as we were discussing, and we've said it many times, and please feel free to steal it from George and I, Russiagate, there were very few Russians and hardly anything to do with Russia.
Right.
When it comes to Russiagate.
Right. Nothing. There was nothing. There was no Russian component to it. The Russians, almost from the beginning, whether it was Putin or Lavrov, made the same point. Please leave us out of your domestic fights. just leave us out of it. We don't have anything to do with any of that.
Let's give everybody a really simple example: the terrible saga that Carter Page had to go through. Okay, which he was actually a CIA asset, which kind of explains why the number of times he went on Laura Ingraham, particularly Laura Ingraham, and he looked like an idiot. And he really did look like an idiot, but he kept his word. He didn't say, I'm an asset of the CIA.
Right.
And so he would be asking these questions and get such strange answers. And just like, there's something wrong with this guy. But the reason why I bring up his name is that it claimed that he had something like a 18% ownership of Rosneft, Russia's biggest energy company. He would be in, not the 1%, the 0.001% in the world. He would be fabulously rich.
That's right.
But look, that's how flimsy this thing was, because when I saw it, I said, come on, that's not possible. I mean, they would never sell it to an individual, okay? It's a strategic asset. Now, anybody, a real Russia watcher, a real one, would have just said, like the late Stephen Cohen. I mean, Stephen Cohen would have come on, this is a joke, okay? Exactly. And if this is a joke, the rest of it's a joke.
Of course it is. That's exactly right. That your point is spot on. That anyone who can peddle nonsense like that, I mean, it's like, what is it, 18 or 19%? I mean, it would be fabulous wealth. I mean, it's like mind-boggling just what a huge company this is. So, but what's interesting is that how the media, again, New York Times, prime exemplar of that, how the New York Times plays, they say, well, the Steele dossier, it was a compilation of unsubstantiated rumors. No, they were not unsubstantiated rumors about Trump. They were lies, utter fabrications. There was no factual basis, whatever. They were lies. Don't start hiding behind, there were rumors, or much of it was unverified, as if that's just the only problem with the Steele dossier, was that it was unverified. So no, it was all a pack of lies.
It was the result of bar talk.
Yeah, that's right.
What else can we think? We'll make up this thing, and let's make up this thing.
That's right.
And then it flew. And again, when you look at the intelligence report that came out that Obama commissioned right after the election.
The ICA, the internet, the ICA.
George, you and I know very well, those kinds of reports take well over a year, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
And this is just, and then it's on the fly. Okay. What is it? They always said 18 intelligence.
That's it. Yeah.
No, it's not. It was Brennan cherry-picked.
Brennan, exactly. Brennan selected a few of his flunkies and they compiled it. And he was presented as an ICA, intelligence community assessment, which was nothing of the sort. So there was none of it. There was no, let's get, all the other intelligence agencies involved. It was absolute nothing. But it did essentially just, put a huge dampener on the Trump administration. It was done, I think it was around January the 6th.
January, right.
Yeah, boom. I mean, it was, Trump administration really had didn't really recover from that at all.
And importantly, these types of reports, because they used to be serious people doing them, there was always a section for dissent.
Exactly.
And they would say, however,
yep.
They would name the names. I mean, there is the assumption or belief that this and this and this are true, counter what the overall findings.
Exactly, because even
they always had dissent.
That's right. Even the wretched Iraq weapons of mass destruction report listed the agencies that dissented from the mainstream view, who didn't believe that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. So yeah, even that had the dissent in it.
And in the same report, 25 pages, 3 pages blank, and 7 pages on RT of all places.
RT.
And it was dated. It was like 40-year-old information.
Yeah, 2012. They went back to the 2012 election. It wasn't even about the 2016 election. It was the 2012 election. and apropos of what? What the hell what to do? I mean, you're supposed to this intelligence operation from the Russian GRU, and you're talking about RT. And
it was all publicly known information. Yes. You just need Google to write what they wrote.
That's it. Yeah. That was that's the interesting aspect, because you have the Russiagate before that. So you have you have clearly the Clinton campaign, and it's involved in how it was peddling the stuff into the FBI. And then you have after the election, because there the Obama administration essentially takes it over and weaponizes all of this garbage and to destroy the incoming Trump administration. Because we still have the question about General Flynn. So we know about all of these. Okay, this was the Clinton campaign with the Steele dossier, with the CrowdStrike, and now obviously with this the nonsense with the Alpha Bank and Trump Organization. Who smeared Michael Flynn? Who came up with this idea that Flynn was working for the Kremlin? That was I haven't heard that the origin of that was the Clinton campaign, but that became an important. Remember that whole story about he was having a romantic relationship with the with some top Russian intelligence woman. She's an academic, and they hadn't, and there was no relationship. They met once, and but
well, I mean, obviously it was killing 2 birds with 1 stone is what it was doing, is that they really had a visceral hatred of Flynn, because he was very contrarian, and and then because he was an active duty officer. I mean, he was a general, a lieutenant general. I mean, it was really difficult to get rid of him, okay? Because he would say, well, based on our research, and he would just say, and show people. I mean, it wasn't like he said, I think the president of the United States is incompetent. He never said anything like that, okay?
No, that's right.
So what it was is, when the baton was passed to Trump, it was Obama apparently said to Trump, be careful of North Korea, and Flynn's a dangerous man.
That's right. That's right. In that first meeting, that famous first meeting, 2 days after the election, he started talking about Flynn. Imagine that. That's your first line of conversation about General Flynn. But of course, Flynn was responsible for that report in 2012 about ISIS, and
he didn't say ISIS, but he said
ISIS. But basically Al Qaeda. The United States is facilitating Al Qaeda in Syria. I mean, it was boom. I mean, it was absolutely right, and said, yeah, U.S. policy is helping Al Qaeda, and so sure, the Obama administration really targeted him for that. So yeah, that's right. But what a malevolent thing to start talking about this. So he was working for the Russians. So that, and then finally, when that obviously, they couldn't go anywhere with that story. Logan Act. That's it. He was having a conversation with Kislyak. Logan Act. That's it, boys. Let's go get him on the Logan Act.
George and I have been around a while, and and politics is our bread and butter, okay, from an early age, okay, and I can attest to you, I have never in my lifetime seen the DOJ finally give up on a prosecution, and then the judge says, "Oh no, you can't walk on." I was left speechless. It's like when Jim Comey came out and absolved Hillary Clinton. I mean, they always talk about norms. What is the head of the FBI doing? He can't do that. It's not his job. It's like Mark Milley. It's not his job. He has no statutory authority to do what they claim that he did. And same thing with Jim Comey. You have no statutory authority.
I know it is extraordinary. I mean, it's like it was a real head scratcher, because you think, why exactly is the head of the FBI saying, well, I don't think there's enough here to warrant a prosecution? And then, since when does the FBI decide whom to prosecute?
In FBI, the I is investigation. That's what they do. Right. They investigate it, and then they give it to the DOJ, and they decide if they want to prosecute. Right. The FBI doesn't do prosecutions until Jim Comey, I guess.
That's right. So here we have a super chat from Flying Boar. That's an interesting name, Flying Boar. And so thank you very much. And he's saying France is backstabbed by Australia on deal after what they did to Russia in 2014. Ukraine crisis, when they scrapped a Mistral ship deal. That's karma.
Well, hey, take a look at what George and I had to say yesterday. We're not surprised whatsoever. I mean, they have this whole... NATO is just a propaganda machine. Okay, that's all it is. It's a self-looking ice cream cone. Okay, and so they believe their own propaganda in Brussels, but then when the U.S. decides to do something in its own national interest, it doesn't give it a second thought to how what was it? Twitter says you can't doubt you can't doubt faith in NATO. What are you using the word faith for?
That's right. That's right. But I think the point is actually a very good one that Flying Boar makes about Mistral. You remember how the French welched on that deal. So you're not in a strong position when you do that thing yourself to say, to cry, whoa, this is really unfair. You're walking back on a contract. We're men of honor. Honorable men. And now this is what you do. Yeah,
rules-based order. Rules-based order. Yeah, karma really is a bitch, isn't it?
Karma is really a bitch. Yeah. So thanks very much for that. So then we have a question from let's see. So again, Herman Montoya asked, Sean Hannity is now doing Russiagate on allegation on colonial pipeline hack. There was no hack, and then it says Sean Hannity is a rhino. I don't know whether Sean Hannity is exactly a rhino. I mean, he's kind of a how would I want to describe it? He's a very one-track mind, very
one gear.
One gear. Yeah, I was thinking of one gear. I was thinking of more, monochromatic. I mean, there's just one color to him, which is Republicans are good. Democrats are awful, liberal media are terrible, and that's it. I mean, I think it doesn't get more sophisticated than that.
What is really troublesome when I think of Sean Hannity, and George and I have discussed this many times privately, is he's essentially a Reagan-Bush Republican, okay? Right. Which is really ironic in a way, because not in a way, certainly. Because he claims to be a flag bearer of the MAGA cause, but he's not. Okay, he's really a throwback, including his colleague Ingram. Laura Ingram is no different. She's not a MAGA person. She's not. She's not a populist. They're not.
Not at all. No, I mean, I think that's it. And Ingram just lives in the past. I mean, it's forever. In 1980, Ronald Reagan has just swept into the White House. I mean, that's her perspective on things. And so when they embrace Trump, they kind of just see him as a Ronald Reagan clone. I mean, it's just simply, that's all they can see in him. I mean, when the newness and originality of Trump, at least in 2016, was precisely that he broke with the whole Reaganite orthodoxy. I mean, that's why he just swept aside the opposition, because the Republican Party itself was now sick to death. They'd had it up to here with Ronald Reagan, and he just broke with it. He just didn't care about it all, and that's it. So that was what was original about it. I mean, how he governed is a different matter, but sure. that was the appeal of Trump.
And I think that's one of the reasons why, when Trump was in the White House, it was a real boon for Fox News, and particularly since, there were even people, I think there was even a story in the New York Times that actually praised Hannity's coverage of Russiagate, because, he was more right than any other outlet. And, but the problem is that, and one of the reasons why they lost a lot of their ratings, bar taking Tucker out of it, we can talk about that in a second if you want. It is because of what George and I have been saying, is that their perception of Donald Trump is different from the bases, yes. Radically different than the bases. Yeah. And they don't seem to understand that. And they're always criticizing the elites. But Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity's they are part of the elite, okay?
Very, very much so. Particularly Ingraham. You always she kind of gives hints about her life, that she kind of hangs out with all the people that she supposedly is mocking and criticizing on her show. You always get a feeling, these are really her friends. She goes through the show, denounce this, denounce that, but afterwards, hey, let's go get a cocktail with all those people.
Liz Cheney, okay, fine. They love to attack her, okay, but what other Republicans do they really attack? Okay, maybe Mitt Romney a little bit, okay, but the juxtaposition is Tucker will go after the Governor Abbott in Texas, right. and then he goes after Lindsey Graham. Could you ever imagine Laura and Hannity talking about Lindsey Graham the way
that's
Tucker?
Right. But you're right, and that's kind of a nice segue when we talk about Abbott, who's kind of I think is a total windbag. He sits there, doing absolutely nothing. You got this massive invasion of the border. So nothing to do with me. It's your bloody state. You have a national guard. It's your state. So instead of actually doing something, they just it's Biden. Hey. It's your state. People are illegally invading your state. You have the powers to bring that, push them out of your state.
Maybe I'm in really left field here, George, but isn't this what the Supreme Court is for?
All right. Yeah, that's it.
And he won't do it.
He won't do it. And so, Nigel Baird asked, guys, did you hear about the FAA who would shut down the airspace over the Del Rio Bridge? That came up yesterday. And Fox has been using the drone footage to show the horrendous number of illegal immigrants assembled. And so estimate is 10,500. That's in itself is quite shocking. The FAA just said, hey, stop all this news gathering because it's jolly embarrassing for the government. I don't know.
Trump was the dictator. Trump was the dictator.
Right. I don't think there's any legal authority to do that. I don't see how you can just simply do that. Unless you're in some ways threatening, other planes or some kind of emergency that you are. I don't see. This is just simply an attempt to squash news gathering.
If there are federal drones looking at the border, well, that's. You should be showing the public then.
Exactly.
You have no excuse in this area, none whatsoever. No. And as the reporter on the ground pointed out, if you look at the video drone coverage, it is very much at a distance. It's not bothering anybody.
Right. Of course not. No. That's right. But I think it's I do think that it's so true of so many of these Republicans, like Abbott. And that guy, he's number 2. Is it Patrick? I think is that his surname?
Yeah,
Patrick. Yeah, Patrick. Well, they go on Fox News and they whine and they whine and they whine. Then you think, hey, you have powers. You have a national guard. If basically, if it's an invasion of your state, then push them out. And if the federal government says it's not within your jurisdiction, you go, okay. Fine, let the federal government step in and see what they're going to do. Are they going to stop the Texas National Guard just simply pushing them out?
The Fourth Amendment and the fourth paragraph. Remember, he was.
That's right, exactly that. All that.
Well, know what that's akin to, George? Is that the Republican Party is standing up for working people. Yeah, you mouth the words,
Right.
you don't do anything.
They don't do anything, exactly. Yeah. And that's why I liked and I think you made that point about, when Tucker Carlson he's gone after Abbott a number of times. I mean, precisely that Abbott just talks, as if you don't actually have to do anything. You just go on Hannity or you go on Ingram, and then you complain and complain and complain, and then that's it. And then you don't have to do anything. Then let's go get a bite to eat. I mean, that's it. So it's like, hey, it's your state.
Yeah,
you are the governor. Do something.
I think that the brunch menu is still open. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we got Star Rover says Al-Qaeda working for the CIA and military-industrial complex since 9/11. Yeah, that's true enough. I mean, the connection between the CIA and jihadis and Islamic fundamentalists, I mean, it goes back a long way. It goes back even before the Mujahideen and the fighting against the Soviet Union. It goes back to the 1950s when the United States was backing the Muslim Brotherhood against Gamal Abdel Nasser. So it's a long, sordid relationship with Islamic fundamentalists.
But they give each other oxygen to breathe.
Exactly. So and at various times, when they fall out with one another, as they did in 9/11, suddenly becomes an excuse for massive military undertakings, and as now. The U.S. excuse to be in Syria or in Iraq. Hey, ISIS! We're fighting ISIS. We got to fight ISIS. Let's go get ISIS. We need to fight ISIS.
When it came to push comes to shove, Tora Bora. Well, we'll let the Afghans take care of that.
That's it. Yeah. Exactly.
Because we got 10 more years to hunt them down.
Exactly.
I mean, it's creating work for yourself. Okay.
Exactly.
And of course, George, no one knew that Bin Laden was in a little village in Pakistan. Of course, that was
no one knew. Exactly. No one knew. Yeah, that's it. Exactly. This is a guy 6'5". He's kind of a charismatic figure. He apparently he could just simply disappear there, for years. I mean, it was 10 years he managed to evade. The Americans were hunting him, so.
Some of the video that they showed the public is that he was watching Al Jazeera Arabic. He was like, oh, I'm in the news again. I'm in the news.
Yeah, so who is it? So Herman Montoya says the only reason why the United States has an immigration crisis is because the United States does regime change in Central and South America. Same goes in the Middle East. Well, I think that's partly true. I think regime change, wars, and everything do stimulate these immigration flows. But ultimately, there's corporate interests that love cheap labor. They fought ferociously, the corporations, exactly, to close the borders. I mean, remember, even when Ronald Reagan passed that amnesty, which is an absolute catastrophe, because all that happened with that amnesty was that it just stimulated the idea all over the world, hey, one day the Americans are going to pass another amnesty, and every few years there was indeed talk, hey, we need another amnesty and so on. So, but
Dreamers.
That's right, exactly. But the point is that Ronald Reagan was that the part of the deal of that 1986 amnesty was that, well, corporations were going to enforce, strict labor requirements. They were going to really, no more hiring of illegal labor. Never happened. Never happened. They never went
after the corporations. Households in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. and Virginia and Maryland had a Guatemalan maid. Okay, right. Come on. Give me a break.
Right. So those, it's all of that. And of course, look, I mean, if basically the Biden administration has opened the border, well, of course, people are going to make a decision. Hey, why don't I, make my way to the United States? I go in, and then chances are the Biden administration is going to do an amnesty. So then I'm on the path to American citizenship. It's a good deal. Why wouldn't people?
Then we have chain migration.
That you have chain migration. So it's a very rational decision. And I think that's that's what happened. So I mean, yes.
Yeah, but I want to address the first part of that. Yes, yes. Forced regime change, meddling in these countries' politics is extremely detrimental. At the end of the day, for everyone, for people, the migrants, for the people in the United States itself. I mean, the Democratic Party is trying. They're the great protectors of African Americans, but immigration is the biggest threat to the African Americans than anything else. It's not white supremacy. Okay, it's called cheap labor.
And
they won't need them eventually. They eventually will not need them. Okay.
No, I think
and that's, what did they'd serve their purpose. They can go vote Republican all they want. We don't care. Okay. No, it's true. It's the way it is.
It is true. I mean, and when you look at the demographics of the United States, I mean, African Americans remain pretty much consistent. It's about 13% of the population. The Hispanic population, that's shot up. It's now 19%. So, within a few years, they will be it's already the case, they're already a much more significant constituency within the Democratic Party than African Americans. So they're losing their cachet. So leave aside the economic aspects, which is, where it comes to unskilled labor, because unskilled labor, the incomes there are just keep being forced down by a constant flow of cheap labor. So leave aside that, but politically, they're failing. So it's quite a deal what the Democrats have done.
Except for no Cubans, please. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's a problem. So I mean, it is kind of an interesting situation where we got the Democratic Party that is basically just welcoming in further and further immigrants, and they're making essentially a calculation that the people who come in, with the exception of the Cubans, will by and large vote for the Democrats. And I think that is true. Now, of course, yes, once they're here and they settle down, they may well, move to the right. But that's why you've got to keep the flow coming in, because as you keep newer and newer people coming in, they by and large vote for the Democrats.
The interesting caveat here is that a lot of these immigrants, particularly from Central America, are actually very conservative people. They're very religious. However, the counterbalance of that is a state and federal assistance. Now, you tend to be more pliable. I mean, this is where my paycheck comes from.
That's exactly right. That's always been the case.
They do. That's what they do.
No, that's a very good point, and that's even true about African American. I mean, African American, but fairly conservative. They're not, on social issues. They're not particularly for transgender.
Even abortion.
Abortion, legalization of drugs, and all that sort of stuff. Let's have legalized pot and all that. I mean, they're not particularly. But
and that's why, George. That's why they always have to say the Republicans or the KKK, white supremacists, because you have to say, but you can't vote for them because they hate you. Well, there's no evidence of that, okay? But that's why they always throw that in there.
Yeah, that's right. But I think
they don't like you.
That's right. But that's right. But that's why. I mean, your point is absolutely spot on when you say government programs. I mean, if there are government programs, if there's government, cash handouts, whether it's with Medicare and Medicaid, whether it's food stamps, when it's free public education, they're going to vote for the Democrats because the Democrats are promising them all of these things. So while I don't particularly like that whole AOC kind of social agenda, if it comes to cash payments, they're going to support the Democrats, and I think that's the little deal that the Democrats have worked.
Absolutely.
Again, Herman Montoya says corporations love cheap labor in the United States and all over the world, regardless of immigration status, in order to maximize their profits. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I think that it is indeed. Yeah.
We're talking, we should be very, very careful here. It's just not low income. It's giving Silicon Valley like those visas for the truly amazing people from India. Okay,
right.
I mean, absolute geniuses, really smart people. Okay, but they'll bring them in, which is a form of servitude because they have restrictions. Sure, they get paid a whole lot more than someone just walking across the border, but. Right. What about people already in the country that have already been educated, and then you take and deny them the job? I give it to someone with half the amount of money, right. Which is for a lot of these really brilliant Indian engineers.
Right, but this is a lot of money for them. Well, except that I don't quite think that that's what's these people that they're bringing in from India and Bangladesh. They're not necessarily brilliant. I mean, the point is they're bringing in people who can work more cheaply and who will be indentured servants. In other words, they are doing jobs that don't require enormous brilliance. Somebody working with computers in a bank. It doesn't require genius.
No, some of them are extremely talented people. Okay, I'm not. What I'm just saying, there's a caveat right there because it's not good for India. India needs its own.
No, that is exactly right. But I mean, I've met because whenever I've taught, particularly I've taught students who are applying to business school and to law school and so on, and many of them, they come India or Bangladesh, and then why are you here? Well, because someone, Merrill Lynch at the time, still existed. Oh, they went to recruiting in Bangladesh. They actually go to places like India and they recruit, but as cheap labor, not doing anything very, very specialized, not writing, very esoteric software. They just come in, just doing routine work at a bank, processing stuff in the bank. But this is where they go and recruit. And it's appalling that, there are Americans who go to, they run in huge debts to get, these STEM degrees. Very hard to get those, a lot of work to get, to do computer science and so on, a lot of work. And then there isn't a job for them because somebody has come in and has taken their job. I mean, it's a terrible, cynical operation.
I think our old friend Lindsey Graham, he wanted to make sure that program was safe. Remember? I think.
Yeah. That's right. Exactly. This is a lot of lobbying goes on in that just for those particular programs. So
remember, there's only Republicans and I'm just going to say Republicans and Democrats during elections. No, there are only Republicans during elections. Okay.
Right. That's exactly.
When it's not an election cycle. They don't care.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That suddenly, hey, I'm Mr. Republican during the months, 3 months before the election, and then boom, thank you, and and then I'm going to go and listen to all the lobbyists and the donors.
Right, I got some donor calls. Sorry.
That's it, exactly. Yeah, forget that. Forget. I'm going to forget you for 6 years. So we've got a question from, just a comment from Folshim Jaeger, 90. I'm in the conservative area in Illinois. There's more Mexican flags flying than that of America. So I think more, yeah. Is it possible that Mexico could take certain parts of the USA just by demographic change? Well, I mean, I think that, all right, what do you want to take?
No, that's such a good question because I remember a few years ago on Crosstalk, before the recording started, we had a Mexican American. He was born in Mexico. He is an American citizen right now. I think he's a dual citizen. And he told me flat out, that's exactly the plan, is that to start moving. He said, we want our land back that was stolen from us. And we will do it through immigration. We will do it through force of numbers. And he was very gleeful about it. And he believes it's going to happen. Right. Just by the force of numbers. Because he believes that that the U.S. is illegally occupying their land, and he was straight-faced about it.
I think that's a good point. On the other hand, I mean, let's say you're a Mexican, you're living here in the United States, I think you'd much rather have American government programs than Mexican government programs. Who's going to make sure that you live better? I mean, the U.S. government or the Mexican government. So yes, they may well have all their allegiances to Mexico, but as to who's going to put more money in your pocket.
There's plenty, and we saw this in the 2020 election in Texas because of people that are doing a forensic study of the election, they saw these border towns that are like 98% Hispanic, and they voted for Trump because they don't want any more immigrants.
No, absolutely, yes.
No, I know a number of Russians that have told me, that Brighton Beach is, in the U.S. is known for the Russian diaspora. And their attitude is when they get there, then they say, end the immigration. There's enough.
Yeah, that's right.
Only as long as you can get there. After that, shut the door.
That's it. Yeah. No, that case with Russia. I mean, interesting with the Russians is, of course, particularly so many of them who came over in the 70s, is that they are very, very anti-Russian. The ones who came to the United States, very anti-Russian, and unfortunately, they kind of manipulate the American political system to, force the U.S. government to pursue a very anti-Russian policy. So these people are really very bad news. I mean, I guess it was similar to the whites who fled the Soviet Union immediately after the Bolsheviks, also very, very preoccupied with their own country. But the problem is that what happens is that they exert this influence, an unhealthy influence on their country. But if you've come to the United States, then you should somehow be concerned with America, what's good for America. But that's not really what they think about. What's good for Russia, and we have to then mobilize America to wage war against the old country. So I think that's kind of bad news.
We've talked about it before, but Solzhenitsyn, he was the great heretic because he went back because he said, my problem was communism, not Russia.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's right.
And then when he told his benefactors, basically he threw it back in their face and saying, you're becoming exactly what I ran away from.
Right.
And of course he got a real cold shoulder.
Very cold shoulder. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's right.
He was no longer useful.
No. But he got a cold shoulder fairly early on, because when he delivered that, I think 1974 or 70, no, it's by 75, 76, when the Harvard address, right. And it wasn't, oh, America's so wonderful and I love America. And he offered, very strong critiques about the American media, the American political system, and boom, supporters dropped him, like a hot potato. And he pretty much then just disappeared as far as American public debate was concerned. He went to Vermont and just lived there, writing his books, and that's it. No more big lectures on Harvard.
No. And he was, again, he was received back in Russia with open arms, okay? Right. Because his problem was with ideology, right. Not with the people, not with the culture.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that's exactly, and he said it. He said it right from the beginning, which was that my problem is the Bolsheviks. He hate the Bolsheviks. It was never Russia. He was always a big, Russian patriot, and which is why, he's been celebrated the way he's been celebrated. Everyone, by Russian government. The whole entire Russia. When he died, I mean, it was a huge event.
I remember in Russia. It was a huge event. The funeral procession was unbelievable. Okay, right. A great tribute to a great writer.
Right, exactly. So that was, but there is something very strange about people who kind of come to the United States and then they specialize in being anti-Russian, just hating Russia, which it's a very odd thing.
I could name so many names, but I mean, and I'm not the type of person that likes to attack those people. Okay, and George and I know who they are, but I'm sorry, I'll be very, very cynical, but it's true. It's a good grift. Oh, you're from the former Soviet Union. Well, you must know everything about the place, okay? Right. Oh, you must be an authority. Yeah, right. I immigrated when I was 4. Okay, you're an authority. Right. Okay, yeah, right.
And there are people who peddle just that line. Well, I was born there, so I know something about Russia. Yeah, you were born there. You left when you were 4, so you don't even have any memories of Soviet Union. And indeed, that Soviet Union really had very little relationship. The last 4 years of the Soviet Union had very little relationship with, the rest of Soviet history. It was a peculiar time.
We're talking about Soviet Jews that left, but they were allowed to leave. Okay, I mean,
yeah, that's right. That's it. Exactly, they were allowed.
And one of the sticking points, it's very rarely spoken. and George and I remember the actual history. The issue was that the Soviets really were per se against these people leaving, but a lot of them were very well educated. And he's saying, you're taking our trade secrets, our technology, and we educated them, and what do we get out of this? Okay,
and it's a very a very good point. I mean, it really was, because yes, we had invested an enormous amount in your education. And now this investment is for the benefit of somebody else. And particularly if they actually have, as you said, trade secrets, they know some stuff, some very scientific engineering, patented, Soviet patented stuff is now going to be given over to the Americans. And you can see that they were quite concerned about this.
It happened.
It did
happen.
That's right. So in fact, when they talk about, well, in the 1970s, I was being spied on by the KGB and so on. Yeah, because you had applied for an exit visa. You were working at a highly secretive work that you were engaged in. They were quite concerned that who were your contacts? Who were you dealing with? Who were you going to give these secrets away to?
J. Edgar Hoover never did that, right?
Never did that. Never, exactly. No, never happened. So that was it. But what you now have is these very strange kind of figures. I mean, we're talking, there's no reason why we can't name names like Julia Ioffe, Max Boot. These are obsessive people, and they don't do their adopted country any good, because essentially, I mean, Max Boot, the absolute crazy neocon, clearly shaped. I mean, his perspective of the world is clearly shaped by that he was born in the Soviet Union.
And he has a perfect record, absolutely sterling record of being wrong on everything. Yeah. I mean, very few people attain that level of consistency. It's really a remarkable thing. Max Boot is been wrong. I mean, he would probably get the weather wrong. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's right. But that's the thing. If you're wrong in the right cause, you move up, in the hierarchy.
One of the things, again, George and I really are enthralled by Soviet history, and you have to remember that after the revolution, I'm not a big fan of Lenin, and he was a good practitioner in understanding how power works. I give him that. But what he proposed, if you restate in Revolution, it's pulp. Okay, I mean, it simply doesn't make any sense. Okay, and it became telling because the Bolsheviks had a really hard time getting set up and setting up a state. Now, the Civil War ironically helped them a lot because you had to make a lot of decisions. It was easier to nationalize things. Yep. But then after the Civil War, they had this really big dilemma: red or expert.
Yep.
And so, you wanted to cultivate your revolutionary brothers who had the fervor for the revolution, but we need accountants too. Okay, we need architects, and we need people that know something about how trains work. Okay, and it was a tension all the way through to Stalin. I mean, the wreckers and all of this. Okay, and so the reason why I'm bringing it up, because this is what's happening in the West. Because if you're ideologically pure, and you screw up everything around you, but he's still one of us, okay? The Bolsheviks were faced with the same problem.
Yes, well, that's exactly right. But of course, this became a very, very wasteful enterprise because, in fact, they had to have the experts, but then they had to have the commissars who were overseeing the experts, and then the commissars themselves had to become expert. Otherwise, they couldn't really effectively oversee. So you basically have two people doing a job that one person can do, and the commissar really wasn't doing anything other than just overseeing and making sure that everything was being done. A total, absolute waste of everyone's time.
And it's even worse because the expert was an educated person, someone that knew what they were doing, and you have the commissar. I don't understand this. He must be a wrecker. I don't understand it because you're a moron. Okay, what your job is to be a minder. Okay, and this went all the way up into the Second World War.
Right.
When the commissars were sticking their beak in left and right. And then finally, Stalin's generals say, "You got to call these guys off, or we're not going to win this war." Okay, and Stalin did. They shut them down.
Exactly, and suddenly it was just all the generals, and suddenly, and Stalin was suddenly respecting all of their opinions. Zhukov, so and then, of course, boom, war's over. Zhukov, you're fired. Thank you very much. The hero of Stalingrad, the hero of Berlin, the hero of Kursk. You're fired. That's how much respect.
Well, that was Khrushchev. Khrushchev just there was nobody. I mean, a very good friend of mine, he died last year, George Watts. I made a documentary about him. He was a translator at RT, but he emigrated as a young man to the Soviet Union in 1953, before Stalin was still alive. Okay, and George knew because he knew English. He was Canadian. He ended up rubbing shoulders with some really interesting people. He met Zhukov's daughter, and she invited him to their home. And George is a very, very humble man. And so she opens the door, and he walks in, and Zhukov is in the living room and said, "I'd like you to meet my father." And George said he just didn't know what to do. It's like, it's Zhukov, oh my God. He actually had a drink with him. Here's a farm boy from Canada sitting in the living room with one of the greatest generals of all time. Amazing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, Zhukov really he died quite late, maybe around 1970 or something like that. I mean, I think it was something quite. I mean, it was very old, but I think it was around 1970 they died. So he lived on for many years after World War II.
And it's, as far as I know, I mean, and anyone knows, please correct me, but his true memoirs lost.
All right.
Because he did write memoirs, but they were really edited and changed.
Right, that's right. Yeah, no, I've got the memoirs that he wrote, but exactly, they're not. They're not.
But they're not the real thing.
Right. So just some comments. So Dragan says, I mean, I think going back to what we were talking about, the immigrants, he's talking about just like Kosovo, where Albanian squatters who have the highest birth rate in Europe declared their own republic. I think it's a very good point, because what they had in Yugoslavia, you had a very high level of welfare. I mean, it was a kind of a welfare state. I mean, and Albania did not. So many Albanians did pour into Kosovo, because once they were in Kosovo, they were entitled to the welfare payments of Yugoslavia. But of course, the point is that by doing so, you kept building up the population of Kosovo, and of course the Serbs then increasingly became a smaller and smaller minority of the population. And so when people then talk about, well, Kosovo 90% Albanian, yeah, it's 90% Albanian because it has a huge illegal population. And so every time Belgrade tried to, well, let's actually do a census, because then we'll find out who's supposed to be in Kosovo, who isn't. Huge, absolute furious rejection on the part of the Kosovo Albanians. No census here, not going to do that. And again, the Western intervention, because they hated the Serbs. So this is absolute outrageous to have a census and find out who's actually supposed to be living in Kosovo and who wasn't. And so, so when they give these numbers, these numbers like 90% of it is Albania and the Serbs are a tiny minority. Yeah, because they are kind of squatters, they've just been moving in illegally. They weren't supposed to be there, but there was no real border control. And once they're there, they get all their payments from Belgrade. So that's a very good analogy. What was it? That was Harry. So Harry Smith. It says. I'm really quite impressed that the US is actually following international law in this one regard. The universal right to seek asylum in any other state and remain there until your request is processed. Well, that was the Trump policy, which is supposed to be, you're absolutely right, that's supposed to be international law, which is, if you are facing persecution, then you come to your first spot and say, hey, I'm facing persecution. Can you grant me asylum? You don't do a kind of a kind of forum shopping, country shopping. I don't really like this country. I'd much rather come to America, or Germany is a much nicer country than being stuck in Serbia. So that's exactly why it was. What happened in 2015 in Europe was so was so ridiculous, because you're supposed to stay in the first country, and of course Orban, who in Hungary, it made Hungary really, the point of vulnerability, because if they come to Hungary, then Hungary is the first stop they have to stay. Well, hey, because they just crossed the border, hey, asylum. And Hungary says, well, what are we going to do with all these people? They don't actually want to live here in Hungary. They just want to move on into Germany. But now we're somehow obligated to keep them, because hey, this is the first place that you come to when you ask for asylum. So that's why it was a horrific farce what happened in 2015.
And everybody learned from it. And even now with the collapse of Afghanistan, even the Europeans are saying, well, not this time.
Not this time, exactly.
We'll sit this one out, okay?
That's right. That's it.
Again, it's just kind of one of my hobby horses here. All these people that are for open borders, and you show your heart, and they're asylum seekers. Do we know they're asylum seekers? I mean, we've lost sight of what these terms mean.
Exactly.
Okay? They've all just become mush and squish. And these are real important things to discuss here. And if you want a better life, well, there's international law doesn't guarantee you.
Exactly.
That's sorry. That's
right. That's exactly right. And in fact, it's very funny what you say that, because people make this claim. They say, if the first country you come to is El Salvador or Guatemala or Mexico, and then someone says, yeah, but these are very violent societies. People get, you can't really live in El Salvador because you've got all these men who beat up women, and then you've got crime, and then cutthroats and bandits and so on. You don't pick and choose. And it's like, if you face persecution, then you face persecution. You can't say, well, I don't really like El Salvador because, you have all these macho men who slap women around. So I don't really want to. Mexico, the chili, the chili pepper doesn't really agree with me. I have a sensitive gut.
I'm a Tex-Mex guy.
Yeah.
I'm a Tex-Mex guy. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's an absurd thing. I mean, that international law is very specific. Boom. You're facing persecution for whatever, because of your politics, your gender, or whatever. First place you come to.
What so many people misunderstand in the mainstream is that you're draining these countries of their strongest, their youngest population, and it is a net. Tucker Carlson did, I think it was the president of
El Salvador.
El Salvador.
Yep.
And he was just saying it's a catastrophe for us. Okay, it's great for Western Union. Okay, but it's a catastrophe for them because you don't accumulate human capital. Okay, and so this is a disaster for them, and it just creates a cycle where you have nowhere else to go. I got to get up north because there's nothing happening here. I mean, like social welfare. These governments, and most of them are very, very corrupt. A lot of them have illegal origins through coups and the U.S. involvement there. They don't even have the simplest healthcare because they know, well, get your relative in El Paso to send some money, okay? Right. So, and that degrades their societal infrastructure, okay? And it's a vicious cycle.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And of course, when people do send remittances, that's again money taken out of the U.S. economy, because that means it's money not spent locally, but it's sent back home. So that's absolutely right. I mean, it's one of these things that there's a strong ideology component in it. All of those, the AOCs and everything, they just, there's some strange psychological thing of you always think they are better than we are. They're coming from some, the third world, Asia, Africa. They must be better than Americans. But then you have the corporations, the powerful corporate interests, says, thank you very much, bring more of them, who's going to work in those Amazon warehouses where, here got a whole bunch of people. So, that enables Jeff Bezos to buy, his next space shuttle ride.
Yeah.
So somebody says, Marie Kate Orca says, I plan to retire in Sochi because of its history of having the best spa treatments. I am disabled by spinal injuries. I don't know. I mean, do you know anything about the spa treatments? That sounds kind of rather nice.
It's well known in Russia. I mean, I've been to Sochi. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's so beautiful. It's kind of like the Switzerland, Russia's Switzerland. I mean, the infrastructure is brand spanking new. I mean, it's expensive. It's a very expensive city to go to, and because of COVID and closed borders, they've found themselves even more in a premier position. But it's well known for spas. It's well known for all kinds of athletics. And what they try to do is, someone that lived in California for a long time, they like to sell the fact that you can go swimming in the morning and skiing in the afternoon. Because
that's kind of nice.
It's cool. It's cool. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's very nice. And then again, and Marie also asked the question, whether we can talk a little bit about the soaring price of gas in Europe.
Well, I mean, what happened was this, is that, again, it's because of the economic slowdown, because of the pandemic. And so demand went down. And then when we started coming out, at least from the initial lockdown, demand was really, really high. And what it did was, when the demand is high, it jacks up the price. And with this sudden, and I mean very sudden, over the course of a few weeks, months, there was a huge demand. And so that was sold on future markets, but they didn't have the time to replenish it for the winter season. So they got caught with their pants down in a way, okay? Because when demand went down, no one was buying it. And then when the economy revved up, and it revved up really fast, consumption went really high.
Yes.
And now what I find, and I talked about this with Jeffrey Roberts and Dmitry Babich today, is that, ideology versus pragmatism, because, well, we don't want Russian gas. Well, you actually need it now, okay? You actually need it now.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's very good point. So then again by, this is Star Rover, talking about AOC attending the $30,000 a head gala dinner while protesting over the endless wars were being clubbed by the cops outside the Met. And she never even mentioned them. No, I mean, that's exactly what I would expect from AOC. And I saw some footage today that when she was leaving the gala, she had some flunkies behind her wearing a mask, but who were holding up the train of her dress, the one with the, tax the rich.
Real royalty.
Exactly like royalty. They were holding up the train because they couldn't, you can't get it dirty. I mean, this is the dirty streets of New York. So they were holding this up as she was on. And of course, they were masked, but she was walking on and she was kind of waving to the crowd, like she, exactly like she's a movie star or the Queen of England. You kind of wave to the cheering crowd. And I just,
no, but
almost bizarre. Yeah.
I've brought this up before, and I absolutely believe it. It's a new serfdom. There are the serfs that wear masks.
Right.
Okay. And then there are people that are the gentry, and they're the ones that can do whatever they want, whatever social mores, sexual mores. They can do anything they want.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
But it's the little people, it's the peasants. You got to control everything about them, everything about their lives. That's right. What it was like in serfdom. Okay.
Yes, I get that. Yeah, that's right.
And on top of it, since you brought it up, there's this meme out there that Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, hates AOC and AOC hates Nancy Pelosi. No, they get along like a house on fire. You know why? Because Nancy loves AOC because AOC, she's like a valve that lets off the pressure. Because she's not going to do anything, okay? No, exactly. She's going to shoot off her mouth or show her butt, okay?
Exactly.
And that's exactly what these Democrats want, okay? Let AOC blow off some steam. Let her, sleep on the Capitol steps, okay? Right. She's completely harmless. All she is a PR campaign. That's all she is.
That's it.
She has no power. She doesn't, she doesn't drive legislation. She is a media diversion from the corruption of the Democrats and their Republican friends.
That's right. That's exactly right. Exactly right. And that's why she has never bucked the party on anything that matters. I mean, remember,
force the vote.
That's it. But remember that time when I think it was when the Trump administration was really putting the pressure on President Maduro of Venezuela when they did the whole Guaido thing. We recognize Guaido, and I think it was Max Blumenthal who kind of did his thing. Accosted her on Capitol Hill. What's your take on this? That's something I gotta think about. It's very concerning. Boom. She quickly dashed off. Hey, she knew that Pelosi was all down for the whole Guaido business. She wasn't going to say, "Hey, you're trying to overthrow the legitimate government of Venezuela." She wasn't going to go down that path.
And the mortgage moratorium, that was the latest one here. Right. When she was asked, I don't remember the percentage. There's like 10 million people that are not even covered by the moratorium, which is illegal, by the way. Okay. And when she was asked about what about the 10% or the 10 million? They just turned up the music and she started dancing. Okay, that's her answer.
Right. No,
she's PR. And no, I want to make this clear. She's great at it. She's good at it.
Right.
She knows what she's doing, but it has no substance. It's all form. But, and she serves the interests of the elites.
That's it. Yeah, but she's. You can do. It doesn't take genius. If you're young and cute, a lot of things fall into place. So it doesn't require real, extraordinary brilliance. She's nice to look at, no question. She's nice to look at. But yeah, I grant you that she's pretty good on television. But I mean, she's no great intellect. I mean, she's unable really to present a coherent argument. Which is why she immediately resorts to sexism, racism, and so on and so forth.
Twitter's perfect for that because you don't have to really have a coherent idea. All you do is vent, and she vents. She's a venter. She's a vent or ventilator. I don't know.
Right. Here's a question for you from Herman Montoya again. When will you have Max Blumenthal, Glenn Greenwald, and Aaron Mate on the Gaggle and Crosstalk? So,
we've had Max Blumenthal. I have to say,
you've had him. I definitely remember Max Blumenthal.
Yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think Max Blumenthal was really kind of surprised by me because I don't think he understood that I was completely on his side with when it comes to foreign policy. And so he had asked him many times, and then he finally said yes. Because he goes on this watching the Hawks program, or at least he did.
Oh, he does. Oh, I never watched that. So okay.
And he finally agreed. And then when he was on, I just said, Max, my goodness, finally you're on my program. And he said, it's nothing against you, Peter. I'm just not a morning person. I work at night and I sleep until noon or something like that.
Right.
And so
that's a problem.
Yeah. I would love to have Aaron Mate on. I think the Gaggle would be a much better format because we would be able to speak much longer. And it's one of the reasons why I really like doing this with George. Because look, we've been going on for an hour and 15 minutes, okay, and we still got a lot more to say.
Right.
My program is much more truncated. So Glenn Greenwald, oh my goodness, that would be one of the greatest hits for me. Okay, but he's in high demand, So
he's in high demand. But I don't know. Does he ever appear on RT? Has he ever done RT?
I think he might have in the past, but don't hold me to it. Okay,
right,
I'm not sure.
Right. Because I somehow wonder whether he might avoid RT, not because he has any political objections, but he just he doesn't want to give people a weapon against him.
Yeah, right. The interesting thing is, I think he might have been maybe asked a question or maybe interviewed or something like that. I don't know. I have to make crosstalk and do the gaggle, so I don't keep an eye on everything that's going on over there. But the fact that RT has been undeserving in its support of Julian Assange, I have to believe that we crossed paths somehow.
Right. Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, and I don't know whether has Aaron Mate ever done RT.
Not that I'm aware of.
Right. Yeah. But Aaron Mate has he has his own show. So I don't know whether he necessarily wants to.
And he's actually a writer. He actually writes damn good stuff.
Yeah, he's a very good writer. No, that's right. But then these are all good people. These are all good, excellent suggestions. So they would certainly be great.
Believe me, it's crossed my mind many times.
So this is Weak Cheeks says Milley, Comey, McCabe, Mueller, Brennan, Clapper destroyed the very government institutions they profess to love. Well, yeah, I think they did, but they probably couldn't care less. I mean, I think they're just interested in they go into these hold these big jobs and then they move into the private sector. Make a ton of money.
Lecture circuit.
Yeah. I mean, let's look at some of the Comey. I mean, these are people who didn't exactly distinguish themselves in any shape, manner, or form. But then what does he do? He goes and gets a professorship. He gets a professorship at I can't remember what this some college in Virginia. Peter Strzok, another one, gets a professorship at Georgetown. So and then they're going to move probably into a big white shoe law firm, have a nice little gig there. So I don't know whether they care that much about the institutions. I mean, it's again the rubes who think that somehow it's America. These American institutions matter. We need to have strong institutions. They don't care. I think they just use it and then move on.
That's right. You and I've talked about this repeatedly. Public service is not the end in itself. It's a means to get somewhere else. That's all it is. And we see that over and over and over again. I mean, look at Barack Hussein Obama. I mean, he's probably thinks he's finally made it to the top. He works at Netflix. Okay. I mean, presidency. Netflix. Yeah.
We're talking, exactly. Netflix. We're talking serious money there. I got some miserable little salary as a president. It's very interesting, though. Speaking of salaries, is that Trump gave up his salary. It's never mentioned ever in the media that he never took a salary. I mean, it's like it's all the talk about Trump's corruption and whatever. He never took a salary. You always donated his salary to something, either this government agency or that government agency. It's kind of and again, I mean, all the talk about Trump's corruption, and I don't think it's ever been proven. How is he corrupt? How did this benefit? Look, he's poorer now than he was before he entered the White House. I mean, but he's lost a lot of business because his reputation has been tarnished.
In his orbit, though, we really don't know Jared Kushner. He seems to have had his fingers in a lot of different pots. Okay, so but then again, that just proves our point. Become a special assistant to the president of the United States, and the door is open for you.
Right. That's it. Yeah. So somebody actually going back to the point that Harry Smith says that remember that Max's wife Anya Parampil was an actor at RT for a number of years. So, and he says I've seen Max there many times. Yeah, I think that's right. But
he's been on RT America many.
Yeah, I think so exactly. But I think you said that he does that watching the Hawks or whatever. So yeah, he does RT America. No, that's. What were we talking about just before that?
Jared Kushner corruption.
Yeah, Jared Kushner. Yeah, I don't, but I think that, remember, I mean, Trump was making a ton of money because of the brand. I mean, he sold that name. I mean, it was the name was something that people admired. They may not have liked him very much ever, but they identified it with success, with New York glamour, New York, aggressiveness. And I just don't think it quite has that cachet. I don't know where do people really still want to go and buy an apartment in Trump Tower or in Trump Plaza? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's fair to say he sacrificed a lot. To, I mean, he's one of the only ones that in a long chain of presidents that he's not he can't cash in. I mean,
right.
It's just not feasible for him.
Right. That's right. So it's kind of interesting. But I have to think though that he, as things stand now, he intends to run in 2024.
It really looks like it.
Because when he's asked that question and he says, "I think you're going to like my answer," I mean,
yeah, but I'm sorry, but I think he likes his answer. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I mean, if he says this to Hannity, "I think you're going to like my answer." I mean, I don't think Hannity's answer would be. No, I don't think I'm going to give 2024 a miss. I don't think Hannity would like that answer.
But the mainstream media, their official line is, Trump is toxic. He's this and that. Oh, they want him so desperately to come back in because they need the ratings. Okay,
absolutely.
Because that's what they need. I mean, it was really interesting. It was weeks and weeks and weeks after the Biden administration started, and Rachel Maddow is still doing Trump stories because that's what her viewers want.
Yes, yeah. It is really funny, So they keep talking about Trump because there's a commercial aspect to it. I mean, their numbers are quite shocking. CNN and MSNBC. I mean, at prime time, they're not able to get 1 million viewers. It's a big country, America, and if you're not able in prime time to get 1 million viewers, you're in a lot of trouble.
And Tucker's getting 3+.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So no question. They'd love to have Trump back, and then boom, bang, we go back to Hitler, Mussolini, Nazis, Holocaust. That is, the good old days are back. So, they've got Herman Montoya says Judge Stephen Breyer told Fox News Sunday that he's open to term limits. Is it possible that we can actually get term limits for judges? And when will Stephen Breyer retire? Well, I mean, I think that I'm finding it bizarre, just to take the last question, that he's not retiring because, otherwise he's going to do a Ruth Bader Ginsburg. If Republicans take the 2024, it's unlikely he's going to last till 2028. And then, boom, it's going to be another conservative would replace him.
Commission some kind of study on this. Okay. I'm very traditional, and I really wish the court would function the way it's supposed to, and I think it's really gone off the path. But I am very open to term limits. I mean, and I'd be very generous about it, like 20 years. Okay, I'd be very generous.
So. Yeah, I think so. 20 years. I mean, I don't think you need. Why do you need more than 20 years on the bench? I mean, I think that's fine. Particularly Supreme Court or anything else.
You have to remember, everyone. I mean, when you were 150 years ago, if you were 70, you were considered really old, really old.
Right. That's right. And really, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who just went on and on and on, and you could see that she was badly fading. I mean, she would appear, and you could see that that she is old. And then she would recover from another cancer surgery and yet another cancer surgery, and then be diagnosed with yet another cancer. I mean, you think, well, this is kind of absurd. I mean, Obama, had her over for lunch, pleading with her, "Can you please retire?" And she wouldn't do it because she had become a celebrity. Suddenly, late in life, in her 80s, she suddenly become a celebrity, and she was loving it, and she wasn't going to go.
And they made her a little action doll out of her. I saw a superhero.
That's right. But and the reason is that really you have to. I don't see any reason why you can't have mandatory retirement. I mean, why? I mean, the notion this is a job for life. I mean, why? Why should it be a job for life? There's no other sphere is there somehow a job for life. I mean, presidents, they only have 2 terms. You have in many states, governors or mayors.
And the good thing is, with the term limits, once they, how would I envision it? Is that the next Supreme Court justice, that's where you're going to get 20 years, because everybody else, well, I don't know, Kavanaugh could be around longer than 20 years, okay? And Amy Barrett, she could still, but I mean, you start this process, and then at a certain point, you will know when the person steps down, and then you can correlate it with election cycles and stuff like that. It's basically the same thing, okay? Right. So I don't think it would be really earth shaking or anything like that.
I don't think so.
What I don't want is hacking the courts, okay? Because once you do that, then we're going to end up with 75.
Right. No, that's exactly what would happen. But what happens now is, of course, that remember what happened with Anthony Kennedy. I mean, Anthony Kennedy also there was a question that he didn't want to step down, but then finally agreed to step down with one stipulation, that he is replaced by Kavanaugh. And he said, I'm not going to step down unless you nominate Kavanaugh as my replacement. So you actually have, basically just blackmailing that president. Say, basically, you are deciding. It was Kennedy himself who decided that his successor would be Kavanaugh. I mean, you can't have that. I mean, it has to be the president nominate, and then the Senate advises. But the notion that you just otherwise, hey, I'm not going to retire. This is a nice job. I'm going to stay on. I mean. So it seems like Breyer is doing the same thing. So
I seriously, I personally, I don't understand why he doesn't want to be home with his great grandchildren. I
don't get it. I mean, it's
the pension is there. I mean, right. A very generous pension.
Very generous, and you would think, why not? Do the few things that you haven't done in your life. I mean, go to some country you've never been to. I don't know. You've still got a few years left. Why not just do things that you haven't done? You've got plenty of money to play with.
Just sit on a lounge chair and look at the forest. I mean, I don't know. Exactly. That hard? Okay, it's actually quite attractive when you're old. Okay.
Right. So James H says there should be term limits on being a politician. I agree with that. I mean, remember they came close to it during the Gingrich era. They were going to introduce term limits for Congress, and then they voted against it. No, once not
for me.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Exactly. Once it becomes a matter for you to decide, so no, I don't think so.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Newt, because Newt, he's done really well since he was speaker.
Very well. Yeah.
I mean, he's an influencer. He's got book deals. I'm sure he's a highly paid lobbyist. Maybe not openly, but I mean, if you want to call Newt, it's going to cost you.
Right. Yeah. He's done extremely well. I mean, all of the things. I mean, he writes these books. He seems to write a book a year. I mean, they all sell very well. And does just an awful lot of stuff. And he's done really very, very nice work for himself. So anyway.
Okay, a few more questions. Okay.
Yeah. I think we should. I mean, it's running out, but there's one question here, which is a kind of which again, Harry Smith says, I read the US Constitution this year, and it says specifically that if a president is impeached, the Senate trial must be presided over by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Why wasn't this done? I mean, I think he's talking here about the second impeachment. Well, because obviously Roberts did not think that was a proper impeachment, and he wouldn't do it. And of course it was a nonsensical impeachment.
Again, it really boggles the mind, how Trump, the advent of Trump, his supporters, all its ideology, which I don't think is an ideology. It could be one day, but it's not one now. And it was all against the norms. But everything they did against him was against the norms.
Yes.
They're the ones that broke the norms.
Right.
I mean, watching the second impeachment, it just infuriated me. Okay, then let's go impeach George W. Bush while we're at it, okay? Okay, and Grover Cleveland wasn't that great of a president, George. We ought to take care of that. Okay,
absolutely, absolutely. It really is. It's just a carte blanche. Just impeach everyone, and then impeach all of the all of the slave owners. I mean, let's impeach all of them. I mean, you're taking down their statues, so why not also impeach them and throw them out of the Arlington Cemetery while you're at it? So. That's right.
But what they did was they made a complete mockery of it. And you and I disagree on this a little bit. We've talked about it before. But unfortunately, it just now impeachment is just going to be the norm. Okay? Every president now is going to face impeachment. Okay.
Yes.
And I find that to be very, very disappointing. It's very unhealthy for the Republic. But the Republic is very unhealthy right now. Right. And I'm very little, I'm sorry, I don't have a whole lot of hope for it.
No, I think that's without question, if the Republicans do recapture the House in 2022, and I have no doubt at all that they will, the first thing, the order of business will be to impeach Biden. I mean, that's just going to move right away on that. And while McCarthy may not be very happy with that, I think he'll just be swept aside by Republicans who say they want to get even. So there's no question.
I wouldn't put McCarthy in charge of valet parking, would you? The guy is completely useless. He is dumb as a doornail, number one.
He even looks really dumb.
Yeah. And he as much as we really hate Nancy Pelosi, because I think she's a thoroughly corrupt person, she's a pretty powerful political operator. She keeps her caucus in line.
She keeps her caucus in line, and she pulled these impeachments off. I mean, you'd have to think she's never going to be able to pull it off. And she pulled them off. I mean, they failed. She didn't have the votes, but she pulled it off, and she kept everyone in line. They all voted to impeach Trump. She did it twice. Despite all, the obvious, criticisms, she did it. I mean, she's a very nasty piece of work. But you're right. She knows exactly how to play the game, and she's very mean. And McCarthy is just putty in her hands. I mean, it's a joke having him up against her.
Yeah, I mean, if you went to the Capitol, you'd say, "Are you head of valet parking? Can you take my car around back? Thanks." Okay.
All right, Peter, any closing thoughts for the day?
I'm very happy that we did this. We're going to get the word out more. We need to have more people watching us, but now everybody knows we can do it. Okay.
Exactly.
And I'm proud of ourselves for pulling this off. I'm very happy that everyone that watched and will watch. Mm-hmm. But I really want to stress to everyone, this is a regular thing. George and I are slating out Friday
exactly is going to be super chat.
Something that we're going to do, and I think we're good at it, if I can say that. And just please, share, ask people to, tell people about it. Okay.
Absolutely.
We really enjoy questions from our viewers. Okay.
Yep.
It's very, very smart stuff. And it shows that the toxic nonsense of the media hasn't penetrated your minds. And we're happy to have you with us.
Exactly. And I think we have really great audience, ask terrific questions, make very, very interesting, insightful comments. As we've discussed before, the Gaggle page becoming an absolutely essential news source because people are posting all sorts of very, very interesting stuff. So it's an invaluable resource. And fellow Gagglers, these are really, really smart people. So I'm really, really glad that we've found one another, and we're going to be doing this on a regular basis because we love to do it. And we're glad that our fellow Gagglers are happy.
How many videos have we done? Are we out at 500 yet?
Well, we've done the 500 because remember, we're I think about TG 476, but we've done all sorts of other things. We've done all those gaggling global politics and the various things that didn't get to number them. So yeah, we've done around 500. Yeah.
Not bad, not bad. And we're gonna be talking. Who we're gonna be talking to? Our pollster friend.
Yeah, Richard Barris. I think that's going to be in about 10 days. That's
guys. That is good quality viewing. Okay, very engaging, very smart guy.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really good. Yeah, no, and that's going to be a regular thing. We're going to be doing it twice a month with Richard Barris. So that's going to be a lot of very interesting insights there.
So let me do our spiel. We're on, everybody knows we're on the Gaggle. We're the Gaggle. We're on the gaggle.locals.com. If you want to do a Zoom chat with us, please feel, my dogs are getting all over me right now. Let me show you here. I have a little riot. I have a riot in my house, okay? Because they know, because I do this so often, they know when I'm ending. That means that we can go out for a walk.
Right, exactly. They're getting quite excited.
Okay, so we do Zoom calls. We have the mailbag. Please send us a question. We do Q&As. You were doing this our super chat now. George has gone out and done a number of live
stream. That's also going to be a regular thing. So that's also a lot of fun.
And there's this thing called the jar.
Exactly.
You can see through it. It's transparent. Did you notice that?
Exactly. Because the ideal situation is we can't see anything. What's on the other side? No, we can see it. We put it to our ears. We hear the ocean. Not a good situation. So anything that you can help us, any contribution would be most appreciated. They need the tips. We need the tips. So we're all in this together. So please, whatever you can do, would be most grateful. And remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe.